So the moment has finally arrived. The next couple of weeks, we're going to get to see these New York City tapings and see how TNA did. I've been very curious for this moment because over the past month or so, I feel like TNA's built themselves up a little bit of momentum, and I want to see how they're able to sustain it, maintain it, and perhaps even grow upon and build upon that momentum a little bit. And when I look at this week's show, the first kind of New York City taping, it's kind of like TNA is trying to set the table and make the New York City tapings kind of their own series with a maybe beginning, a middle, and an end. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. And I will say, and again, I'm emphasizing this now so that way nobody can sit there and spin it and say I said anything otherwise, because some recent videos I have done, there has been a clear lack of listening to what I actually said. This was still a solid episode of Impact. I still like this show. I thought it was good. I don't think it hit it out of the park. I definitely don't think it was outstanding. I could see where people that went to this event live might have thought this was a great show. It came across okay on television. It came across just okay, though. This was not a great show. But again, not every show needs to be great. If you do more good than bad, at the end of the day, you're going to end up okay. And this, to me, was a good, solid episode of Impact. But there were a few things that did bother me about this week's show that I will talk about during the span of this review. We get to the beginning of the show, and this is where I had my first problem with this week's episode of Impact. Look. I understand you're going into New York City. You're going to the Hammerstein Ballroom. You want to impress Spike TV. You want to have 3 really solid, productive weeks. You want to put out a banging product. I understand why you would want to incorporate Bully Ray and Tommy Dreamer and Rhino going into New York City. That alone is not necessarily my qualm. My thing is that Bully Ray, Tommy Dreamer, and Rhino, if this is ECW in 1999, this is probably really damn good wrestling television. The problem is that this is TNA and this is 2014. And I'm sorry, but when Tommy Dreamer and Bully Ray are cutting a promo and the fans are chanting ECW, which is a name and brand that has been bought out 13 years ago by another company that is actually stationed in New York primarily, if you want to say, in the WWE, and they're chanting for this on TNA television, that's a problem. Again, ECW was about its own path. ECW was about changing wrestling history, not trying to live up to wrestling history. And I think it's very ironic that so many fans look back on ECW with such a nostalgic type of worldview, and that these different wrestling companies try to grasp onto what ECW once had, all the while failing to understand that ECW was the epitome of being counterculture, that ECW was about looking ahead, not looking back. And that's something that all too often so many of these wrestling companies seem to miss the point on and seem to forget and lose sight of. And again, it's 2014. I blame the fans a little bit. Stop chanting ECW on Impact Wrestling. Stop chanting ECW for fucking TNA shows. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. It's not helping get the TNA brand over. It's getting over a name, a wrestling company that is, for all intents and purposes, been gone for 13 fucking years now. And even with this whole segment leading up to a tag match with Dreamer and Bully versus Rhino and EC3, I look at it and I say, the dynamics of this were just off a little bit to me. Maybe I didn't care. I understand to some of the old hardcore ECW fans that went to these shows in New York that this might be great. And maybe this came across better live in person. But again, it's 2014. This is TNA. This isn't fucking ECW. It's time to leave the past in the past, and it is time to find your own vision, your own path, and your own direction, especially knowing what this is all building up to, and it's just kind of like, who the fuck cares? I like the emphasis on the X Division on this week's show. You're bringing back the 6-sided ring, which I thought TNA was going to make a bigger deal about, a bigger stink about, than they were going to present as being a more significant change than what they frankly did. But here you go to the X Division, something that is synonymous with that 6-sided ring. And this X Division Gauntlet match, you're trying to sit there and establish Austin Aries. Not that he needs to necessarily be established, but you're trying to establish him as a super serious X Division champion, potentially ahead of a decision about Option C in a couple of weeks feuds with Destination X. And, this worked out really well. This X Division Gauntlet match got plenty of time. Came down to the right two people at the end. The right guy won. It was done in the right way. I loved a lot of elements about this. My second problem with this week's show, though, was something you saw in this X Division match, and you saw in matches throughout. It always pisses me off and frustrates me when WWE takes commercial breaks during matches and or skips entrances or cuts entrances off where you don't see them. And you saw that happen throughout the night with Impact this week. And I'm just hoping that TNA doesn't continue that trend. I like when they go to a match at the start and they stick with the entire match all the way through. I like when you could see everybody enter. Again, how are you supposed to take somebody seriously if you don't even see their damn entrance, which is kind of their first point of entry, their first point of standing out and saying, hey, look at me. But again, other than that, this X Division Gauntlet match was really good. Right guy won in the right way, and it did in general get plenty of time. I was very pleased with this, and again, made a lot of sense. You're bringing back the six-sided ring. You're going to New York City. The fans are going to get behind this, other than the fact that they were chanting ROH at one point. Wrestling fans going to TNA shows, if you're liking what you're seeing, chant the TNA name or the name of the wrestlers in the match. Don't chant for other fucking companies like ROH. Don't chant for fucking ECW because it makes you look like morons. Help TNA get themselves over. Don't get other damn wrestling companies over it.
Hey, Sanada, how about it? How about what? How about these nuts, motherfucker? You blind PS Power looking mug. You got a former TNA World Heavyweight Champion in the Cowboy James Storm. And for some reason, he took a liking to you. He tried to help you. He tried to get you to the next level. Now, a good man would sit there and say, hey, I'm not the Cowboy James Storm. The Cowboy James Storm is the Cowboy James Storm. And he probably know what the fuck he doing a lot more than I do. So let me heed his advice, let me accept his tough love, and become a better wrestler and a better man because of it. But no, Sanada think he know better. He gonna flip and kick his way to the top. Well, just like I'm sure he so often does in the bedroom, just like the Cowboy James Storm predicted. He came up just a little bit short. And that's why he deserved that ass whooping he got. And I hope he got a lot more coming, because I know this much. The Cowboy James Storm gonna mop the floor with Sanada all over the place. And then he will go on to Bound for Glory. And he will take the Great Muta to the woodshed, if you know what I mean. Woo! Ride the Dick Storm, baby.
One match I didn't have any qualms with. I like the setup to it. I like how it happened. I like the way the finish was booked. I like what happened as a result. That's Kenny King and MVP versus Eric Young and Bobby Roode. Again, at least with this faction of Lashley, King, and MVP, they're not dominating television time. It's not an overgrown schmaz of fucking jobbers. It's three guys. You're booking them relatively well. You're actually trying to get heel heat on them the right way. I like a lot of what they're doing, and I like how they're playing Eric Young off of this and Bobby Roode off of this, and how you can mix and match and do different things. This is an example of when wrestling booking can be done right. This is an example of doing business well, doing business the right way. And I really like it. No stupid babyface run out this week to save the day. You let the heels get some heat. You let the heels beat down EY and Bobby Roode. That way you have a purpose for the match next week between MVP and Bobby Roode that was announced. And that was fine with me. But it leads into the next kind of point. We saw this with Brittany versus Madison Rayne. This overuse of stipulation matches, which is my third problem with this week's show. You're setting up to next week MVP and Bobby Roode, and it's Falls Count Anywhere. Does that match have to be Falls Count Anywhere at this point in time? Why overuse these stipulations? And then when you look at Brittany and you look at Madison Rayne, this match this week, this was no disqualification, no countout. Why? I get that there's some story between the two of them, but you really have only tipped the iceberg when it comes to this feud. Why sit there and dive right into a no disqualification, no countout match? And I find it funny that you throw this stipulation at this match and you really don't use the stipulation that much in this match, and you lose the crowd for a while to the point where they're chanting for Christy Hemme. Again, if you overuse these stipulations too much and you just announce them at the last minute, you don't give purpose or reason for them occurring and why they're important, then they start to lose their significance. Hence why during a no disqualification, no countout match with a story somewhat between Brittany and Madison Rayne, your crowd was chanting for Christy Hemme. Oopsie daisies. I love the way that TNA is booking Bobby Lashley as their world champion. I know I did a video a couple days ago about my concerns with Bobby Lashley being the champion, just in terms of, is he there to promote TNA or is he there to promote MMA? And I still have those concerns. But, and I will emphasize this again, I'm still 100% behind Bobby Lashley as the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. I'm glad TNA made the decision, regardless of their ulterior motives, and I'm standing behind this title reign very firm because I like a lot of the things that TNA are doing with it. So again, for those of you that sometimes seem to have problems understanding and comprehending what I actually said, listen to what I said. I'm still happy Bobby Lashley is the champion. I'm glad TNA made him the freaking champion, and I think they've done a very good job with him as champion. And again, I get to this TNA World Heavyweight Championship match here between Bobby Lashley and Jeff Hardy. You know, you don't have to have some long promo segments sometimes. They built up to it nicely. You show Lashley arriving. You show Jeff Hardy. Then later on, you show Lashley. You show Jeff Hardy. I like how with Bobby Lashley, they know he's not the most charismatic and they know he's not the greatest speaker. Again, not everybody needs to be incredibly charismatic in terms of outgoing personality. Not everybody needs to fucking talk. If you don't need to go there, then why fucking go there? I think if anything, it adds to the appeal of Bobby Lashley. He makes that World Heavyweight Championship feel more like a big fight type of belt. And I really like the fucking feeling. And I like the feeling of this freaking match here between Bobby Lashley and Jeff Hardy. My only one concern about this match is, why is Jeff Hardy sitting there doing the swanton onto the steel steps if this match isn't even going to fucking main event Impact? Which was a crying shame, because this was a really damn good world title match on television. Furthermore, I love the way the finish was booked. Bobby Lashley took advantage of Jeff Hardy going to the extreme and missing. He swings big and sometimes he misses big. Bobby Lashley takes advantage, but not in a cowardly chicken shit way, in a smart way, and still beats Jeff Hardy, a credible challenger to anybody at any point in time, 100% clean, with his signature finishing maneuver, the spear. That is another signature victory, so to speak, for a Bobby Lashley. Another successful 100% clean title defense for a Bobby Lashley. I love the way TNA is making him feel, to a certain degree, like a special attraction. I love the way that TNA is presenting him right now. I love the way TNA is featuring him right now. You're making it feel like it's a big deal to see the world champion. He's defending his belt every couple of weeks, and when he does, by God, he fucking wins 100% clean as a heel. Imagine that. And guess what, wrestling business? When you do shit like this, it can fucking work, because in my opinion, it is working for TNA with Lashley as their World Heavyweight Champion. And if the TNA World Heavyweight Championship match would have been the actual main event, would have actually closed this show, I would have been like, job well done, TNA. I can overlook some of the other small gripes for this week's show and, just let it be, because that was a championship match type of feel. That was a good championship match. It was booked the right way. It was built up to the right way. It was presented the right way. And it was job well done. But no, of course, we're dealing with fucking TNA here. So why have your World Heavyweight Championship title match main event your fucking show? This is some type of shit that TNA has fucking done for years that is ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. They used to do this for so many damn years with that Memphis mid-card piece of crap defender, Jeff fucking Jarrett. No matter what anybody else was doing, no matter who had the world title, if it involved Jeff Jarrett, it was always going to be the most important part of the fucking show, and it was going to be pounded down your throat and straight up your ass. And you're getting that same fucking feeling with Dixie Carter here. In no way, shape, or form should this fucking segment have main evented this damn show, period. Oh, Dixie's going to be there, and the Bully Ray and the Tommy Dreamer, and they're going to put an EC3 to the table. Who gives a fuck? I mean, again, I understand that the direction this is going. I understand what's going to happen, and I understand a lot of you want it to happen. I understand a lot of you can't wait for it to happen, and symbolically, it's going to mean so much to you to see it when it actually does happen. But in my opinion, I could give two fucks less about it. And again, just fucking A. Where are the priorities here? Why does Dixie Carter even need to be on television at this point in time? And of all things, you're building it up like the most important thing that your company is doing over the next couple of weeks is to the point of whether or not Dixie Carter is going to go through a fucking table. Okay, if it doesn't happen, then what? And if it does happen, then what? I mean, what's the big deal here? Don't we have bigger priorities? Don't we have more important fish to fry than be building up to this? I mean, if this leads to Dixie Carter getting off of our fucking television for an extended period of time, then I will deal with it. And I will learn to cope with it. But god damn it all. If you want to be different, and you want to be counterculture, and you want to establish your own identity, having a quality World Heavyweight Championship match where your strong dominant heel goes over like a strong dominant heel should be the main event. Not some fucking stupid segment involving whether or not the 50-year-old woman that runs TNA is going to go through a goddamn table. So let me emphasize once again, so that way there is no misconception, there's no confusion. I still thought this week's Impact was a good, solid show. Not every show needs to be great, and not every show is going to be great. You will have some great, you will have some good, some average, some bad, some terrible. This fit into the kind of good category, and that's good enough for me sometimes. They didn't do anything to ruin their momentum. They sustained and maintained their momentum as far as I was concerned. I know some people are going to come on here on the interwebs and kiss this company's ass and say, oh my God, these New York City tapings are fucking awesome. This week's Impact was incredible. I wouldn't go that far. But I did like some of the things that they did. You have your X-Division champion be booked to be very strong. You start him off number one in the Gauntlet match. He goes all the way through. He wins. You're setting up, to a very interesting decision a couple of weeks from now with Destination X. You freaking set up a story between James Storm and Sanada. You're building up nicely to MVP and Bobby Roode, maybe setting the table up down the road for maybe Bobby Roode versus Bobby Lashley. You had a really nice World Heavyweight Championship match where your strong dominant heel went over like a strong dominant heel is supposed to do. So there were some really good things that I liked about this show. Just some problems with it, in my opinion, that kept it from being a great show. Well, I guess we'll see what happens next week.